What's poppin' world? Back at it again. Y'all tapped in with the Head of the Game podcast. Without further ado, y'all read the title. Let's get into it. Now, it's been a long time coming. This video might be a little extended just due to the amount of information I'm gonna have to explain to y'all. But if y'all looking into getting your CDL, especially inside of a city or a state that a lot of freight isn't coming in and out of, so there's not like a lot of programs or grants or things of that nature to get yourself set in position to be able to start truck driving. I'm gonna just tell y'all my backstory because I feel like I had to come through the front door, meaning that I had to do everything that was required. You feel me? To get in there. There's some people that get in through the back door, through the patio, through the window, where there's not a lot of visibility and obstacles and things of that nature. But I'm gonna just tell y'all my journey. There's lots of different ways to get into trucking, and it depends on your age as well, and your story, and your obligations, things of that nature. But let's get into it. So earlier this year, I ended up saving up about $2,200, right? $2,200 as a down payment to be able to get my school loan finance to be able to attend this CDL school, right? And if you have good or better credit, there are some schools that would allow you to either have no money down or to put a very small percentage of the money down to be able to attend the school depending on your credit and things of that nature, right? But if you got to come out of pocket, each individual school has its own set of different credibility when it comes down to who was doing what and how they translate to certain trucking companies. Because they understand that there's a different quality when it comes down to trucking school, right? So once you get into trucking school, let's take two steps back, right? So before you even save the money, call up a trucking school, anything of that nature. Now there are some schools that will help you out with this, but primarily if you're trying to get it out the mud, then what I want you to do is download the CDL Prep app, look up your nearest commercial DMV, and go down and get your CDL permit. Once you get your CDL permit, now it's three tests. It's air brakes, it's combinations, and it's general knowledge. General knowledge typically has 230 whatever questions. It might be higher than that. But generally, you go through the app, and yeah, 200 questions could be a little overwhelming, but you start to see the trend that a lot of these questions start to repeat themselves. So it might be a little less than 200 when you really look at it. But that's besides the point. The point is that if you want to get around from studying that thick ass handbook, from front to back, like you studying for a freaking project, or you got to write out an essay, repeatedly just remember the answers and not remember the questions, meaning that when you go into the app and you're excessively taking the test over and over and over and over and over again, all these questions, about 90 to 95% of the questions that are being asked are going to be the same questions that's being asked at the DMV when you go take the test. And it's the ultimate cheat code far as getting in there and getting your permit and stuff. You want to get your permit under like 2 weeks. If you're really diligent, you can definitely be ready for maybe all three tests, maybe within a week or two, depending on just your study habits, right? So once you lock in your permit, then you start vetting out CDL schools that best complement your situation. So if you have a lot of downtime, you can go to a CDL school that you can go full-time, get done in a month. There's other CDL schools that are more independent based, but then they work around your schedule so you can still work. That's the kind of one I went into. So therefore, once I got out of school, I was still employed for my previous job, and my hand wasn't forced to just jump in any CDL job because I need to make the money right away, right? So when you're in CDL school, most of all of them are going to tell you how to do a pre-trip, tell you how to do the air brake test, tell you how to do at least one or two maneuvers as far as the scale, whether it's blind side backing, straight backing, and then you got the road test. And each school varies. That's why I say that, depending on what company kind of understands your school, will kind of get a impression of what kind of training you had, right? So once you accomplish all those things, typically it took me about, I think like 6 weeks. 6 weeks taking weekend classes, and I took a lot of PTO as well, so it definitely jump started my process. So I took off a whole week just to go for 5 days straight, and then I just started taking the weekend classes until I was able to take the DMV test, right? Took the DMV test, passed it, then we on to the next. Now this is something I would advise y'all to do, because I do feel like a lot of people skip this step right here, which is the endorsements. You gotta get your endorsements, right? Now, let's take 2 steps back into the CDL school, and let's go into depth about what you'll be learning regarding pre-trip. What's a pre-trip? What's the air brake test? Straight backing and all that, and drive test is kind of self-explanatory, but I'll touch on it a little bit. So the pre-trip is pretty much where you're inspecting the truck, you're going over the hood, opening up the hood, and you're looking at different compartments and components inside the engine, and there's certain things that you're checking for to make sure that, it doesn't need to be put in service, or, it's functioning right. So each component has its own indicators if it's working functionally, right? So you go inside the hood, on the side of the truck, behind the truck. Then they got a fifth wheel, which helps you attach the trailer to the truck. Then you got the kingpin, which is it's like a little small bar that goes in the fifth wheel coming from the trailer, so they hook together the kingpin into the fifth wheel, so that way once it's secured, it's able to function right. Then you got the entire trailer, right? Boom. Then you got the air brake test. The air brake test is manipulating the PSI levels, throughout the trailer and the truck, and making sure that there's no problems with either the hydraulic thing that makes that builds up the air pressure, which is, I think it's like called the governor or something like that, or the airlines themselves, which transfers the air between, either the truck to the trailer to the truck, so on and so forth, right? Once you get inclined to those things, then you do the maneuvers. Some people have you parked behind trailers. Some people have you parked between cones. Just depends on the school. And then the road test, which, you go out. It's pretty self-explanatory, but it teaches you how to make turns, what to look for. As you're making turns, reading road signs, just increasing your driving IQ as a truck driver and not just a regular, personal vehicle driver, right? So, going into your school. Once you go into your school and graduate, then the most important part, one of the most important parts that I feel like is skipped over, is this part right here, which are the endorsements. You got 3 endorsements. You got doubles and triples, tankers, hazmat. Me personally, I got all 3. So tankers and doubles and triples, you can just go into the DMV, study just like how you study for your permit, those different sections of the permit, and you can just go in there, pass those. The hazmat. Now, what's so special about the hazmat is that there's multiple different levels of things you have to do to be able to acquire your hazmat. What's it called? Your hazmat endorsement. First and foremost, you got to go to a TSA office. Well, nope, let me take that back. First step, you go online, you look up the TSA website. And on the TSA website, just like the airport, there's a section where it says hazmat endorsement. You fill out the application. Once you fill out the application, it's like a 11 page application. Once you get done with that, then they have a list of things that direct you to where you have to, apply, right? Or get your fingerprints at. So, your fingerprints, to get fingerprinted, I think it's maybe about $100, depending on where you go. It may differ. I went to, I think it's called Identigo or something like that. Yeah, Identigo. It's a fingerprinting place, right? So, fingerprints, get your fingerprints, submit your fingerprints. Now, this fingerprint process, depending on the time of year, depending on how many applicants, will determine in which you get your fingerprints back. Mine so happened to be fortunate enough to come back, I think, within 8 to 10 days or something like that. They say it could take anywhere up to 30 to 60 days, right? And I had submitted mine right at the beginning of the government shutdown. So, because the TSA is federal and, federal workers, y'all get it. So once you submit your fingerprints and the fingerprints get approved, then you have to go down to the DMV after studying on the test, for the test, and these endorsements, all the endorsement, the way you're able to study for them is through the CDL Prep app. That's how you prep that up. Now, before you go to the DMV, and I almost forgot this step, there's a ELD hazmat certification. Now, they typically cost $25 if you do them online. It's about maybe like a 2-hour course. And you gotta, after watching all the prompts, all the segments, all the videos and things of that nature, you have, I think it's like a 25 question test. It's either a 25 or a 30 question test. And you gotta score 80%, right? Once you pay for that, then you go into the DMV, you take the hazmat test, and I think it's only like maybe $20 to add it on your license. So altogether, the hazmat endorsement is about $150, $100, maybe up to $170 to get through, right? So once you get all your endorsements, then you decide what school you want to go to as a free agent, right? Because if you do it this way, then you can either hop on with Swift, Knight, Prime, Schneider, any one of those mega carriers that accept zero experience drivers. And if you don't like it, you can easily jump to the next company without feeling obligated to knock out their contract, right? Because if you sign a contract, I'm not sure if they play with your CDL. I'm not sure if they do or they don't. But I went this route, so my CDL didn't get played with. I can have my pick of the litter of deciding where I want to go and what was the best plan for me, right? So, what is that? Once you decide what school you want to go into, or not school, but company, this is the number one thing that I advise everyone to do before they get into this trucking industry. Have a vision, have a plan, and sometimes your plan is to have no plan, which is that's okay too. If you don't really have no high expectations with trucking, and you just like, hey, it's better than my old job, that suffices to me as a plan. Hey, you just want to make more money. Point blank, period. Others that might want more or want to be more advantageous towards this opportunity, and you don't have to have a hard, concrete plan, like a hard, concrete 10-year plan. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to say this. Because life happens, you have to have your outline, right? And your outline, the things that happens in between those outlines have to be interchangeable just because you don't know what's going to be thrown at you in life. So have a plan, have a vision, have a strategy, Because if you get into this industry and you want more for yourself, you can be lost in this industry in a sense of you can just be stuck out on the road. You don't know how to manage your money. You don't know how to take care of yourself. And it begins to eventually be all you know, and you don't want to take a chance to do anything else. So now, there's that. The That's the independent way of getting into the trucking industry. Now you got the traditional way, which is, you either get on Swift, like Prime, sign a contract with them. Uh, they're paying you bottom of the market money, which is probably better than the job you're working now. If you're thinking about getting into trucking, possibly not. Who knows? Arguably, if I would have gotten the Swift, um, going 48 states for a year, so on and so forth, whatever. I probably would have been making the same amount that I'm making when I was working at FedEx. So it's subjective, right? Um, just depends. But other than that, uh, trying to think if there's anything I left out. There's other companies that do have like on-the-job training programs, but it just really depends on your city and stuff like that. This video is primarily for people that don't live in a heavy freight city and looking to get into getting their CDLs and coming in with a plan, because most cities that isn't freight heavy, to go local, you have to build your experience, right? Just having the CDL, cool. But you, in a sense, that first 3 to 6 months is going to be treated as your internship, because most local jobs don't rock with people unless they got either 3, 6. Most of the time is either a year experience or plus. So that's all I got to say. That's all I got to add. If y'all got anything y'all want to add to the video, leave it below. Thanks for watching. Comment, like, subscribe. I'm gone.